I'm Mercy Noah and welcome to Coach Me On. I am so excited because today we're going to be doing something a little bit different, and that is we are going to be interviewing Barbie Blanco, who is an expert and senior recruiter both on the corporate and the search firm side of talent acquisition. And today she's going to be sharing with us not only her expertise but her great insights for candidates, all of us job seekers, on the things that we should be thinking about doing in order to get noticed and get hired. Welcome, Barbie, to Coach Me On. Thanks for joining me for this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I so look forward to your expertise and the great insights that you're going to share with our viewers on these topics. So let's get right into it.
Sure.
And let's start with that hidden monster that we're all so afraid of. And that is the applicant tracking system, ATSs, that artificial intelligence, that it's that first filter that as a candidate we need to hopefully get through. So tell us a little bit about the ATS, and as a candidate, what should we be making sure that it is within our resume so that the ATS system picks us up and notices us?
Sure. Well, the ATS is an electronic gatekeeper for recruiters. So basically, it kind of weeds out the resumes that may not be necessarily a fit for the particular role that the candidate's applying for. So what's really important is, first of all, the format of your resume.
Okay.
So a lot of times, or most of the times, candidates submit a PDF format of their resume. That actually confuses the ATS system. So unless it specifies to upload a PDF, you're always going to want to upload a Word format.
Okay.
Because typically that is the readable format for an ATS. It doesn't cause confusion.
Okay.
Okay. The second thing that's really important are the keywords that you use. So utilizing keywords in your resume that are relevant to both your experience as well as the role that you're applying for. So sometimes ATS actually look for the number of times that you've utilized those keywords as well as the placement and where you actually place them. So you want to be really mindful of where and how many times you utilize those keywords, and make sure that when you incorporate them, they make sense, that they describe, the experience you have with that specific skill set. You don't want to overdo it and kind of try to trick the ATS system, because eventually it is going to get to the recruiter's hands. So it definitely has to be placed, in a format that makes sense.
Okay. So before we move on, within ATS, let's just talk a little bit more about these words. Mm-hmm. So how do I know what are those keywords that should be within my resume that are going to be tied to that job and picked up by the ATS?
Sure, that's a great question. So, what you want to do is look at the job description, and then again, compare it to your skill sets and your background and experience, and make sure that those words are peppered into your resume. But again, not too many times, and that where it is implemented, it makes sense. So that's really a great way to gauge, what words to use.
Okay. Any recommendations on job description and how I use the job description to identify the words? Anything there? In LinkedIn, do I look at multiple job descriptions? What else can you tell me that I really know? Hey, these should be appearing in my background and my resume if I have that.
Sure, that's a great question. So, one thing is you definitely want to look at, the profile of, if it's a accountant, as an example, looking at profiles maybe of other LinkedIn members, seeing what keywords they've used, and then looking at other job descriptions that are posted for an accountant, as an example. So, if there's certain keywords that you find a theme in them, in profiles as well as job descriptions, then you want to make sure that those are incorporated as well.
Got it. So a tip I'm going to share with the viewers, and that is go to tagcrowd.com or any other website that is a Wordle website. And what I have done in the past is I will go, just like you recommended, Barbie, to LinkedIn, and I'll pull, let's say it's a marketing manager position. I will pull multiple job descriptions from different companies. I might not even be applying for that company, and copy and paste those job descriptions into TagCrowd, for example. And that that will generate a Wordle for me, which will highlight all of those keywords that are within the job profile that then I'm going to look at and determine, to your great point, is it relevant to me? Is it an experience that I have in a word that describes my background that should be appearing in my resume, so that hopefully I'm having those really relevant and strong words for that job within my resume as well.
Yeah,
so just a tip I wanted to share
great
with
tip.
the viewer on that.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
So what else on ATS?
Yeah, the other thing you want to make sure, if there is a common acronym that's used, like SEO as an example, excuse me, you want to make sure that you have the acronym as well as the acronym spelled out. So search engine optimization. Some applicant tracking systems will pick up and understand the acronyms, others won't. So you want to make sure that both of those are clear. The other thing is, try not to use graphs or images. Although they're very appealing, it really confuses the ATS. So you want to make sure that you don't include any of those types of items, because then what happens is it'll never get to the recruiter. And then lastly, formats. Just make sure that the formatting of your resume is just a traditional format. Again, there's many out there, but not all applicant tracking systems are going to pick up non-traditional formats.
Got it. Let's go back to the visuals, because that's such a big one, especially architects, designers, right? They want to show their work. It's a big part of their resume, of what they've done and that background. What do I do then with all those great visuals?
Yeah, that's a great point. So you can always have two versions of your resume. So when we get back to in-person, or even if you want to, if you make it to an interview, you can always email another version of your resume once you are actually get the interview.
Yeah, I love that.
So you may want to have two versions, maybe one that's visually appealing if you're a designer or an architect, and then you've got the traditional format for the ATS. The other thing you can do is, the traditional resume format is have a link to your portfolio. Most designers will have a link to their portfolio that showcases all of their work.
Great. Yeah, I love that. And so many times I've noticed candidates actually do not include that link as part of their resume.
Yeah.
They will have their email address, they'll have their LinkedIn URL, but where's the link to that portfolio?
Very important.
Put it on top of the resume as well. So that's great.
Absolutely.
So we've gotten through the monster of the ATS. Yay! And now we have gotten a call. But before that call and that connection with you, you're going to look at that resume. And what are you going to want to see in that resume to then move to the live conversation with the candidate? What do you want to see?
So I'm going to divide it into two buckets. I would say one is the formatting and the visual of the resume, and the second would be the content. So visually, you want to make sure that you've got all the important contact information up front. Your name, your email address, as well as a contact number, and also the LinkedIn URL. That's super important. It just makes it easier for us to be able to go in and see more about the candidate, as well as location. Sometimes if it's a position that requires relocation, and we see that the candidate is in another city, we'll always maybe ask, like, just want to make sure, I noticed that you're based in Miami, Florida. Are you open to moving to New York? So that's important. Also, a lot of times people still put their home address. That's really not necessary anymore, but just make sure you have those key, contact pieces in your resume. The other thing is visually appealing. You don't want your font size to be too small or too large. So an 11 point is always a good size. Additionally, the type of font, so the typeface. I would say try to keep it simple and clean, like Arial and Garmin are two good typefaces that are nice. The other thing that you want to make sure, please no misspellings. So important. I think that hiring managers as well as recruiters look out for that. It just shows whether or not you've taken the time to go through your resume. If you're a detail-oriented person, just make sure you don't have any misspellings. It's very important. The other thing I would say is, when you look at content, it's always nice to have a professional summary up front that just gives maybe 3-4 sentences tops, quick background on your experience, sectors that you've worked in. That's always good to have, and then maybe peppering in some of the soft skills as well. This is just a good way for the recruiter to get a quick snapshot as to who the candidate is, and entice them to either keep reading, keep looking through the resume, or maybe just realizing that this person may not be a fit and put the resume to the side. So another thing that's important is when you have the dates of your tenure with each company. If you've been with a company for many years, let's say you've been with ABC Company for 15 years, you want to make sure that right next to that you put the total number of years you've been with the company. And then you can list the various positions that you held within that company. And then next to those positions, you want to put how long you were in each role. The reason I say this is this will help the recruiter see really quickly, wow, this person's been in this company for many years, they've got great tenure. Whereas if you don't include that and you might just put, I've been in this last role for 1 year.
That might throw everything off.
It might throw everything off.
Yeah,
correct.
Great.
So I think that's important, as well as also just making sure that your dates are current. So if you are no longer with the company, put the end date. And if you're still with the company, just put current. That helps the recruiter really understand, where you are in your role and your position. Another thing that I find helpful, and not everybody has in their resume, but is a good tip, under each position that you've held, have a 1 or 2 sentence explanation of what your actual responsibility was in that role. Again, it's just a quick way to help us understand if you are, potentially qualified for this role. And then the last thing I would say that recruiters look for in a resume is just make sure if you're applying for a role that you truly are fit based on most of the requirements of the position. So, if the requirement is minimum 5 years experience and you only have 2, or if it says, you must be very proficient or an expert in Excel and you've never touched Excel, then don't apply for the role, because really it's just being mindful of everybody's time.
That's right. People are hoping that they get through some way with everything else that they have, but unfortunately that's not always the case. Let's go back to the dates, because I've heard a lot of different opinions on this. I completely agree. ABC Company 2006 to 2020. It shows great stability, to your point, right? Wow, you've been with that organization a number of years, and it tells the entire package. Do I just put the years, or do I put the months and the years? What's your opinion on that?
Honestly, either one. I think it's just a matter of, taste or opinion. I don't think there's any wrong or right way. So either one's fine.
Awesome. And then that about paragraph.
Yes.
Very critical to your point, because that is giving a fantastic synopsis of what you can bring to the organization. Right. So it's very important. Let's just take a quick look before moving to our next area of focus on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Are you going on LinkedIn? Recruiters are going on LinkedIn and they are looking. Talk to us a little bit about the value and the power of LinkedIn to find candidates and what is in there to tell a good story about that candidate as well.
So a headline is very important. If you want to have in your headline not just your title and the company you're with, but just keywords that describe your skill sets and your background. That's a great way as we search for candidates to be able to find someone. So that's really important to try to include in your headline some keywords that describe your skill sets. And just have a complete LinkedIn profile. Sometimes you find candidates that just have the title, the company, and their title. That's it. How am I supposed to know what you do? Right. So try to just don't copy and paste your resume into the LinkedIn profile. Just put in maybe use that summary I explained, those 2 sentences of what your responsibilities are or were in those positions. Maybe even include 1 or 2 bullet points that highlight some of the accomplishments you had in each role.
Right.
So make sure that is complete, really important. Also, what's great is having referrals or recommendations from former colleagues. Ask for them. Great. They're always great. It's always nice to see that. And then also make sure that you complete the skills section of the LinkedIn and try to choose the keywords that highlight the experience, the skill sets, the industries you're in. Those are all great ways for us as a recruiter to find you. And then if you're also open to looking for opportunities, there is a section in LinkedIn that you can include to let recruiters know that you are looking.
Yeah, love it. I love LinkedIn. Definitely use it a lot. So I want to just share a tip with our viewers on something you said with regard to LinkedIn and recommendations. Make sure they are current. If they are recommendations that were 15 years ago, those are not current.
Yes.
So reach out to an ex-boss, a peer, a client. Try to have those three groups give you recommendations, because I think that clearly our expert and our recruiters are looking for that, and you want to make sure that you have some that are current to the last position that you held. I love it. So now you've gotten through that ATS. Now you've gotten through the recruiter, the live person looking at your resume, and you're going to give them only 20 to 30 minutes of your time.
Yes.
What do you want to hear? Because I've got to shine, right? So that you move me on.
Yes.
What is important that you would want to share with our viewers on what recruiters want to hear from the candidate?
Yeah, I would say first, we want to know and hear that the candidate has done their research and their homework on the company. Really understanding what the company does, some highlights on the company, maybe if there's been some current news or announcements. So just showing, the recruiter that you've done your homework. Also be able to kind of give that 3 to 4 minute elevator speech on your background, your experience, some highlights, and be able to speak to some of those highlights that really are relevant for the position. And then being able to share where you are today in your search. Are you maybe no longer working and actively looking? If you're still with the company, why you're looking to leave, and why you're looking for new opportunities. So be able to kind of give us that quick little summary, so we're able to know a little bit about you. Don't go off on a tangent. Sometimes we do. And again, you want to be mindful if you only have those 20 or 30 minutes that you're able to, get all the key information in.
Share your story concisely.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many times I've had candidates that have taken up the entire time just talking about a particular piece of their background, right? They didn't prepare, they didn't really put their story, that 30-second commercial of what they really want that recruiter to walk away with, and it was a train wreck. We walked away with me not getting anything that I needed as an interviewer. Right. So I think that's, fantastic. A huge pet peeve of mine that I want to get into. So Barbie, you said something that is so near and dear to my heart because it just kills me. And that is, do your homework, come prepared. And so often I will ask a candidate as an interviewer, what questions do you have for me? Yeah. And they say nothing.
Yeah.
Literally. Not only do they not say anything, they say, no, I have no questions. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about how you feel about that. What recommendations do you have for candidates regarding that preparation and that opportunity that is given to you as part of that live conversation?
Yeah, so questions are really important. In fact, a lot of times a hiring manager and even a recruiter will kind of gauge whether or not the candidate could be, proper for the role based on whether or not they have questions and the types of questions they have. So, I would say make sure that your questions are strategic. Write them down before your interview, maybe even divide them in buckets, based on the types of questions. It could be questions about the company, it could be questions about the specific role, and just make sure that they're strategic, they're thoughtful, and they're not fluffy questions like, how much PTO am I going to get? So I think that it's really important, and it says a lot about a candidate, A, that they did their homework, and B, that they've got really good questions to ask.
I love that. That first interview with a recruiter is not the time to ask how many vacation days you're going to be, getting. So what about the salary question? It probably will come up during that 20-30 minute first connect because you're going to want to know where the candidate stands and if indeed there's someone that is going to be within your range or not. Tell us a little bit about responding to that question.
Yeah, so a candidate should be clear about a range, what their expectations are, leaving room, of course, to negotiate, a salary. Be clear, too, when you talk about your range, if it's a base that you're referring to, a base salary, or if it's, all-inclusive. Another tip I would suggest is do your homework. So based on the type of position you're applying for, your years of experience, go into the Labor of Bureau statistics on the website based on where you live, or if you're looking to move to another city or another market. It'll kind of give you a range, market data on what the salary ranges are for those positions, or if it's not the exact position, maybe one that's very close to it. And that'll also give you an idea of what you could be asking for.
Love it. I think that is a great tip. Give a range. You will be asked what are your expectations? Because you should not be asked, what is your salary?
Correct.
Is that accurate, Barbie?
That's correct, yes. We can no longer ask. So, and a candidate does not have to self-disclose their salary.
Thank you for saying that. So please keep that in mind. Give a range, because what that does, and I think that was a great recommendation, Barbie, it allows the candidate then to negotiate. If I land on a number and give you a number, then you know, well, that's what they want.
That's right.
And that's where I'm going to go in and extend the offer. Rather than with a range, it's going to allow you to play around with that.
Yes.
So that's a great tip for someone to consider, and figure out what that range is by doing your homework.
Correct.
Because a position and what it pays in Seattle or New York or San Francisco isn't necessarily the same thing as Kansas City or
Right.
Oklahoma.
The cost of living has a lot to do with it.
Absolutely. Awesome. Okay, so now I've gotten through Barbie, the recruiter. So now you're going to pass me on to that hiring manager. Also a critical opportunity for me to share my story. What tips do you have on how I should show up now with the hiring manager?
Sure. So very important, show up on time, in terms of an interview. So nowadays, things are different. We're doing a lot of interviews on video, but if it is an in-person interview, make sure you give yourself enough time to show up to the interview. Bring a couple of copies of your resume. You never know if maybe the hiring manager is going to have you interview with somebody else if the interview is really going well. And then also try to always find out the name of the person you're interviewing with as well as their title, so you can look them up on LinkedIn. It's really important to just understand who you're going to be interviewing with, their background, their experience. And then very much like the tips I talked about earlier for a recruiter, make sure that you've done your homework. So do your homework not just on the company, but also in the area that you are interviewing for. Let's say it's a sales position, and this role is going to be basically focusing on selling different products. So go online, look at the different products, the features, if they've introduced new products into the market. So familiarize yourself and do your homework so that the hiring manager sees that you've gone through that trouble. Also be able to, again, speak to your background and experience. Why am I qualified for this position? And then be ready to have examples for any traditional questions that might come up. So always have those things prepared. And then back to the questions, make sure you have strategic questions ready to ask the hiring manager. Sometimes the questions might be a little different when you interview with a recruiter, and when it's with the hiring manager, they're going to probably be more specific, or should be more specific to the role, the department. Trying to understand. Also, a good question is, what are you looking for an ideal candidate? So just really be mindful of the types of questions that you have prepared for the hiring manager.
And you as a candidate, you're interviewing that leader as well, right? This potentially is going to
Yes,
be your boss.
That's right.
If you are actually speaking that
Yes.
next round with the hiring manager,
Correct.
that is your boss. So is there anything wrong with asking questions around their leadership style?
I don't think there is. I think it's a hiring manager wants to know that there's a lot of interest in different levels of the role. So I think definitely asking them, what is your leadership style? What do you look for, in an ideal candidate or for your team? I think those are really good questions too to focus on.
Excellent. Yeah, I love those, because I do think it's a great opportunity for you to see what's the chemistry that you're going to have with that individual. A perspective that I'd love to get from you, should I send a connect invite to the person that I'm going to be interviewing with via LinkedIn prior to my interview?
I think that's a personal choice. I don't think there's either wrong or right way. I would say if you feel comfortable doing so, and if they are comfortable in accepting, you can.
Great. Yeah, I like that. That's actually something that I do, and I put a note, and this was a great tip that was shared with me a while ago. Don't send a connect invite just on its own without adding a little note.
Absolutely.
So I will just put on there, I look forward to speaking with you tomorrow, Barbie.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And then I'm connected. For the most part, they always accept, and what I love is, especially in today's world where I am not doing a live interview and you're handing me a business card, and we're going to get to that next on how filling jobs has changed. It allows me an in that then through LinkedIn, I have that connection, that first degree connection now with them, where I can send the thank you note. And I'm sending the thank you note to them through LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's a good
for
one.
them.
Thank you notes are so important.
They are.
Definitely, that's another last point I want to make, thank you notes. So it's really important to just thank them for the time, validate that you have an interest in the role, make it short, make it sweet, but hiring managers do appreciate thank you notes. So whether it's through LinkedIn, if you've connected with them, or email, sometimes if you don't have the email address from the hiring manager, just ask the recruiter, can you please pass along this thank you note on my behalf, or even may I have the hiring manager's email address, and just send it to them directly.
Excellent. One last question in this space, and that is around follow-ups. So now I've interviewed, how do I follow up? And should I follow up? And what's the timing around the follow-up?
I would say, definitely you can follow up, but just understand that sometimes an interview process takes some time. There's various candidates that are being interviewed, so you may not get an answer right away. So just be patient. I would say within a week you can maybe send a quick note to the hiring manager, just checking in, seeing if there are any updates. I'm still very interested in the position. But just, you don't need to be persistent, consistently sending notes. Just know that you definitely want to show interest, but just be mindful on the timing. I think, the week after is a good enough time to follow up.
Perfect, love it. And it shows a great deal of respect and appreciation, right? So send that thank you note. They are so impactful. Okay, our last area, and certainly the face of recruiting, the face of the hiring process, the experience for the candidate has really changed post-pandemic. So tell us a little bit about that change, right? And what can a candidate expect, and how should they now be showing up considering the new world of hiring and interviewing candidates?
Yeah, so now, interviews are being done, if not by the phone, by video, mostly by video, because whether it's Zoom or Microsoft People or Connect, because at the end of the day, you still there's nothing like seeing the person. So that's a big thing now, and I would say treat it as a regular interview with just a couple of little, different tips. So first, you want to make sure you dress professionally. Just because you're, in your home, still dress up, dress up for the interview as if you were going to be there. I would say try not to wear anything that could be distracting with prints or stripes, solid colors. For women, a solid blouse. For men, a tie that's maybe a solid color. Also, on the technical aspect, it's super important to test everything. So if they send you a link for a meeting invite, test that link maybe about an hour before, so that if you do have a problem with it, maybe you can reach out to the recruiter, whoever it was that sent you the meeting invite, and say, hey, having some trouble connecting, you do not want that to happen in the middle of the interview. So check that. Also check your lighting, the environment that you're going to be in the room, check your computer, make sure that your Wi-Fi is working. Maybe you even want to do a test run with somebody in your family to make sure that the lighting's right, that your computer's working. Also, always when you're interviewing, make sure you look at the camera, that little camera on the top of your computer, because that is basically as if you were looking straight into the interviewer's eyes. So those kind of little tips, are definitely important. Also, you want to make sure that you're in a room that not only has good lighting, but where there are no distractions. So make sure if you have pets, put them away. If you have a phone, put it on silent. If you're expecting an Amazon package, just write a little note at the door asking them to please not ring the doorbell, just to leave it at the door. I know those sound like silly little things, but they can really cause a distraction, so you just want to make sure that you're mindful of all those things. And then again, just be ready to, as a regular interview, prepare to ask good questions, to be able to present yourself properly, just knowing that, you're just in a different environment. You're doing it via video versus in person.
And I think we've seen some videos that have gone viral with the kids coming in, and we might look at those and that's a funny moment, but I would say try to get someone to help with the kids, because it's not just the distraction. I would say it throws you off, right, in your clarity of mind and being concentrated and listening in the right way to the questions that you're being asked and to the questions that you're asking. So take care of the kids as well. And we don't want to see dirty laundry, so pick up the room, right? Put things away. It doesn't need to be behind you as your backdrop. So think about the things that are behind you as well. I love that. So thank you so much, Barbie.
You're welcome.
For joining us on Coach Me On. Anything else that you'd like to leave our viewers with that will help them and benefit them?
Yeah, no, I just, always be prepared. Make sure your resume is always up to date, your LinkedIn profile is up to date. And when you interview with a recruiter, just know that although they're not the hiring manager, they are the gatekeepers. So it's important to just be as prepared when you interview with a recruiter as you are with a hiring manager.
And love those recruiters, right? They need some love as well. So be respectful and be appreciative of that first line of defense when you're connecting with them. So thank you so much.
No, thank you.
So thank you for joining me and Barbie today on this topic, and I hope that you found it of value and that you feel you took away some great tips to help you in your job search. Remember to leave comments, ask questions or suggestions, and like. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon to get notifications when that Thursday video is released. And once again, thank you for letting me and Barbie coach you today on Coach Me On. See you soon.